Hi, I'm Debbie Nelson with Nixing Publishing here in the United States, and we're continuing our series about graphene with Adrian Nixon, who comes to us from Yorkshire, England. Thank you for joining us today, Adrian. How are you?
I'm great, Debbie. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to our talk today because we spoke about taking graphene and making it into fibers. And now today you're going to talk with us about adding a graphene coating on top of some type of textile and see how that works and what it might be used for.
Yeah, this is just an introduction so far with a few examples. There's lots of things that graphene can do, but we've just picked a selection from the journal out over the past 2 or 3 years. So this first one is looking at making textiles thermally conductive. And as you said in the introduction, Debbie, this is now not about graphene fibers actually inside the fabric. This is about taking a fabric that's already formed from, in this case, polyester textiles, but you can make textiles from any sorts of fibers. So we've got a textile already, and now we're coating onto the surface with graphene powders in different forms. In this particular case, we got graphene nanoplate powder that was mixed with an acrylic binder. So that's basically a glue to hold it in place and to stop it rubbing off, and also to improve the washability of the fabric. Now, this time, what we're finding now is it's just a straight line relationship. That the more graphene that we add, so on the vertical axis here, we've got thermal conductivity, which is the way that the textile conducts heat. And along the x-axis, along the bottom, we've just got the increasing amount of graphene powder addition that's going into the coating on the surface, expressed as grams per kilogram of textile. And you can see here that we just get a straight line relationship. So the more graphene we add, the better the thermal conductivity goes. At this point, we'd say, oh yeah, we could apply it in all these different uses, but can you think of uses for this particular one, Debbie?
I'm not sure. We were talking about possibly clothes that either keep you cool or keep you warm. This is going to distribute the heat, maybe your body all around you, possibly, I don't know, long underwear.
Yeah, it would take heat from the outside that's coming at you and spread it out sideways. Now it might be useful for firemen's uniforms, things like that. We do know of one company that's moving into this field already, don't we?
Yes, and so if you're taking it from the heat that's coming at you and it's going to resist it, that could be for all different kinds of uniforms and people who are working in potentially dangerous situations where they have to be concerned about, maybe a fire hazard.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see what the viewers come up with because there's lots of other potential applications there. So if we move on to another one, so we go from one mystery perhaps to a slightly less mysterious one. This time we've got another process which has been found where they're treating cotton fabric. There's chitosan in there, and Debbie, I think chitosan you're familiar with, aren't you? Where's it sourced from?
That's the one that's sourced from shrimp shells.
Oh, that's it, yes, yes. And the chitosan here is probably acting as a binder, helping the graphene oxide, in this particular case, stick onto the fabric. So there's a series of dips that go through, and you go through this sequence about 10 cycles, adding graphene oxide each time, and then the hydrosulfide and the acid are probably reducing the graphene back to reduce graphene oxide. And interestingly, after you've gone around this a few times, sort of in the paper, the source paper, it says between 2 and 10 cycles. Then at the end, you end up with a coated cotton fabric, which has some interesting properties. It's electrically conductive and UV protective. What sort of things do you think we could do with that, Debbie?
Well, I didn't have any ideas before when I was, but I thought, well, what about some type of a space application? I wonder, needs to protect from UV. Again, we with this whole topic about textiles, it seems that it would be really fun to hear some of our input from viewers to see what they would possibly.
Could be. And actually, I laughed when you said you didn't say anything, you didn't have any ideas before, but you did really. So you moved us on a little bit. This particular case, I was just wondering if we've got a fabric which is electrically conductive and UV protective, well, maybe we could have a fabric which conducts electricity, so we might be able to turn it into a sensor. If you remember what the Graphene Hackathon guys did last year. They use graphene inks to make and printed onto the surface of fabrics to make them into electrically conductive sensors. So we might be able to do something similar here.
Right. Yes. Actually, I'd seen a clip of NFL football players practicing for this upcoming season with a wearable that they had on that's tracking their movement. It makes me wonder if something like this would be a perfect application for that type of technology when you're
It
talking
could
about.
be, yes. And as you said at the beginning, it could also be applied for space applications for a similar thing. Yeah. So that's another application of a surface treatment of a textile there. And again, we'd like the viewers to maybe make some suggestions about what this could be used for, because that's the great thing about working in the graphene area. There's so many different things it can do. It sparks off lots of ideas with people, and this is coming out of the research. This final example is looking at something called a flame retardant, and this is intumescent. What that means is when it gets hot, it expands and acts as a block for oxygen and almost a bit of a heat barrier as well. So that's how the flame retardancy works. And when you start off with cotton fabric with just potassium carbonate and graphene oxide together, we get a flame retardancy effect. So you've actually got a lighted flame up against the fabric, and it'll resist that for about 5 minutes, 325 seconds. The researchers looked at, okay, well, that's graphene oxide and potassium carbonate together. What about if we just do them separately? So they looked at just potassium carbonate by itself. It's a massive difference, just 20 seconds. Yeah, it is incredible, isn't it? It's a combined effect which is going on here. And then just graphene by itself is not far off the same, about 10 seconds. And then the untreated cotton fabric was less than 5 seconds. So, you could burn this stuff pretty quickly. So it's amazing, isn't it, that you put graphene oxide with something else and it enhances the performance of both. It's called synergy. It's a synergistic effect, and in this particular case, it'll stop things from burning, basically. And that might have some uses. Can you think of any, Debbie?
Yeah, I think well, the thing that popped into my mind was maybe a candle that fell, or even someone having something they're smoking that they should and that dropped to fires that are started from
Yes.
things like that. Perhaps this would be having those fabrics around you would be a lot safer. Furniture, I think we.
Oh, that's a good idea. So that extra retardancy would give you time to actually do something about a fire, or get out the way and maybe make the difference between life and death.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I know from a very small house fire that happened once. The fire marshal said that fire doubles in size every minute.
Wow.
So those minutes make a difference. So yeah,
they do. And in this case, it gives you 5 minutes protection by the looks of things.
Yeah.
And this particular piece of work is only days old. So this was published the other week, and this is in the current issue of the journal. So in this particular one, we've covered coatings on the surface of textiles. So the textile's already been made. In the previous video, we looked at the graphene fibers, where the graphene was actually inside the fibers. And we thought it was probably a good idea to separate the two out because there's a lot of confusion. And we've just scratched the surface, haven't we? There's so many more applications of this.
Yeah, we really have. And the surprise was that in the coatings, that the more graphene you added, the better off it was on the electroconductivity, which is an unusual part of graphene. Usually it's just that little bit. And
that's a good observation, Debbie. When we're putting graphene inside something in a composite, then we usually get this optimum where it gets better up to a point, then tails off. But the stuff we're seeing on coatings is the more you add, the better it gets. It just keeps on getting better. Yeah. Again, probably up to a point. There might be other things going on that weren't included in our studies, but something worthwhile keeping an eye on about that. I think that's an important distinction you've uncovered. Yeah, smart thinking.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the great information, and look forward to what our viewers might contribute this time.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in the next video. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Debbie.